The blood on the sheets told a story Adelaide Parker would never speak aloud. But her eyes said everything when she stumbled from the bedroom that first morning as a married woman, clutching the doorframe like it was the only thing keeping her upright. Her husband of one day lay dead drunk on the floor where he had collapsed after what he had done, and Adelaide walked right past him, out the door, and into the unforgiving Colorado morning of 1878 without looking back. She made it 3 miles before her legs gave out on the dusty road leading away from Alamosa. The sun was climbing higher, turning the San Luis Valley into a furnace, and Adelaide sat in the dirt with her arms wrapped around her knees, rocking slightly, trying to remember how to breathe without feeling like her ribs were caving in. She did not cry. The tears had dried up somewhere around mile 2, leaving only a hollow ache that seemed to have replaced everything soft inside her. That was where Nathan Vance found her, sitting in the middle of the road like a ghost, still wearing her wedding dress that was now brown with dust. He had been driving a small herd of cattle to his ranch when he spotted her, and something about the way she sat so perfectly still made him pull his horse to a stop 20 feet away. "Madam." His voice was careful, the way someone might speak near a spooked horse. "Are you hurt?" Adelaide looked up at him, and Nathan felt something twist in his chest at the emptiness in her eyes. She was young, maybe 22 or 23, with dark hair falling loose from what must have been an elaborate arrangement the day before. Her dress, he realized with growing concern, had been white once. "I need to get away from here," she said, her voice hoarse. "I cannot go back." Nathan dismounted slowly, keeping his movements deliberate and visible. He was 30 years old, tall and weathered from years of working cattle under the Colorado sun, and he had seen enough broken things in his life to recognize when something needed gentle handling. "Where were you headed?" he asked. "Anywhere that is not there." She gestured vaguely behind her, toward Alamosa. Nathan glanced at the town in the distance, then back at the woman in the ruined wedding dress. He did not need to be a genius to piece together what might have happened, and the anger that rose in him was swift and hot. But anger would not help her right now. "I have a ranch about 5 miles north," he said carefully. "My sister lives there with me. You could rest, get cleaned up, and figure out your next move. No one would bother you there." Adelaide studied him for a long moment, searching his face for any hint of the violence she had learned to fear in the span of one night. But Nathan Vance had honest eyes, brown and steady, and hands that hung loose at his sides instead of reaching for her. "I would appreciate that," she whispered. Nathan brought his horse closer and offered his hand to help her stand. She flinched when his fingers touched hers, just slightly, but she let him help her up. He did not put her on his horse right away, sensing that being that close to a man right now might be more than she could bear. "Can you walk a bit? My ranch is not far and we can go slow." She nodded, and they began walking north, Nathan leading his horse between them like a buffer. He did not ask questions, and she did not offer explanations. The only sound was the soft thud of hooves on packed dirt and the distant call of a hawk circling overhead. When they reached the ranch, a woman came out of the house wiping her hands on her apron. She was perhaps 25, with Nathan's same brown eyes and a practical air about her. "Nathan, what on earth?" She hurried down the porch steps, taking in Adelaide's appearance with growing alarm. "Miss, are you all right? Sarah, this is." Nathan paused, realizing he did not even know her name. "Adelaide Parker," she said quietly, then corrected herself with something that sounded like defiance. "Adelaide Pierce. I am Adelaide Pierce now." "She needs help," Nathan said simply. "I found her on the road." Sarah Pierce, recently widowed herself when her husband had died from pneumonia the previous winter, recognized a woman in crisis when she saw one. She crossed the distance between them and gently took Adelaide's arm. "Come inside, dear. Let me draw you a bath and find you some clean clothes." "Nathan, make yourself useful elsewhere." Nathan nodded and led his horse toward the barn, relieved to have his sister there. He was good with cattle and horses, but a traumatized woman was far outside his area of expertise. Inside, Sarah helped Adelaide out of the ruined wedding dress and into a warm bath. She did not ask questions, just washed Adelaide's hair gently and wrapped her in clean clothes that had once belonged to Sarah herself. When Adelaide finally emerged, looking more like a person and less like a ghost, Sarah had hot coffee and breakfast waiting. "You can stay as long as you need," Sarah said, pouring coffee. "We have an extra bedroom. Nathan will not bother you, I promise you that." "My brother is many things, but he is a good man." Adelaide wrapped her hands around the coffee cup, letting the warmth seep into her fingers. "My husband will look for me. Is he the one who hurt you?" Adelaide's silence was answer enough. "Then he can look all he wants," Sarah said firmly. "This ranch is Nathan's, and no one comes here without his say-so. You are safe." Over the next few days, Adelaide barely left the small bedroom Sarah had given her. She was not hiding exactly, but she was not ready to face the world either. Sarah brought her meals and sat with her sometimes, talking about simple things like the weather and the chickens and how the garden was doing. She never pushed for Adelaide's story, and Adelaide was grateful for that mercy. Nathan kept his distance, though Adelaide would sometimes see him from the window, working with the horses in the corral or riding out to check on his cattle. He moved with an easy confidence that came from knowing exactly who he was and what he was doing. There was nothing rushed or aggressive in the way he worked, just steady competence. On the 5th day, Adelaide finally came out of the bedroom and found Sarah kneading bread in the kitchen. "Can I help?" Adelaide asked tentatively. Sarah smiled. "I would love that. My hands could use a break." They worked together in comfortable silence, and when Nathan came in for lunch, Adelaide did not immediately flee. She stayed at the table, hands folded in her lap, while Sarah served stew and fresh bread. "This is good bread," Nathan said, and Adelaide realized with a start that he was talking to her. "Thank you," she said quietly. "I helped make it." "Well, you are clearly better at it than I am. Every time Sarah makes me try, I end up with something that could be used as a doorstop." Despite everything, Adelaide felt the corner of her mouth twitch. It was not quite a smile, but it was close. The days turned into weeks, and slowly, Adelaide began to emerge from the fog of trauma that had enveloped her. She helped Sarah with the household work, finding comfort in the simple rhythm of cooking and cleaning and tending the garden. Nathan remained respectfully distant, never pushing her to talk, never making her uncomfortable with his presence. But Adelaide noticed things about him. The way he was gentle with the horses, especially the skittish ones. How he always asked permission before entering a room where she might be. The careful way he spoke to her, like she was something precious that might break if handled roughly. 6 weeks after she had arrived at the ranch, a man came riding up the road toward the house. Adelaide was in the garden when she saw him, and the basket of vegetables fell from her hands as recognition slammed into her husband, Thomas Pierce. She ran for the house, her heart hammering so hard she thought it might burst from her chest. Nathan was in the barn, and Sarah was in town getting supplies. She was alone. "Adelaide," Thomas's voice carried across the yard. "Adelaide, get out here. I know you are hiding in there." Adelaide pressed herself against the wall inside the house, shaking so hard her teeth chattered. The door was locked, but that had never stopped Thomas before. "You are my wife. You belong to me. Get out here before I come in there and drag you out." Adelaide heard footsteps on the porch, heard Thomas rattling the doorknob. She looked around desperately for something, anything to defend herself with, and her hand closed around a heavy iron pan. The door splintered as Thomas kicked it, once, twice. On the third kick, it flew open, and Thomas stood in the doorway, red-faced and furious. "There you are, you stupid little—" He did not finish the sentence because Nathan appeared behind him, moving faster than Adelaide would have thought possible for a man his size. Nathan grabbed Thomas by the collar and physically hauled him backward off the porch. "You need to leave," Nathan said, his voice deadly calm. "Right now." Thomas wheeled on him, his face purple with rage. "That is my wife. You have no right to keep her from me. She is a person, not property, and she does not want to go with you." Nathan stood between Thomas and the house, his stance relaxed but ready. "So I am going to say it one more time. Leave." "The hell I will." Thomas swung at Nathan, a wild haymaker that Nathan dodged easily. Thomas stumbled, caught himself, and came at Nathan again, this time pulling a knife from his belt. Adelaide screamed from the doorway, but Nathan was already moving. He caught Thomas's wrist, twisted hard, and the knife fell to the ground. Then Nathan's fist connected with Thomas's jaw, and Thomas went down hard. "I told you to leave," Nathan said, standing over him. "Next time I will not be so gentle. Now get on your horse and get off my land." Thomas struggled to his feet, spitting blood. "This is not over. She is my wife by law." "The law can come talk to me about it then," Nathan said. "But you are not taking her anywhere she does not want to go." Thomas looked past Nathan to where Adelaide stood in the doorway, still clutching the iron pan. "You will regret this," he snarled at her. "You will come crawling back, and when you do, you will pay for every day you have been gone." "I would rather die," Adelaide said, her voice stronger than she felt. Thomas spat in the dirt, climbed onto his horse, and rode away, though not before looking back with a promise of retribution in his eyes. When he was gone, Nathan turned to Adelaide. She was shaking so badly she could barely stand, and the pan clattered to the floor as her knees gave out. Nathan caught her before she fell, and for the first time since that terrible night, Adelaide let herself lean on someone. She did not have the strength to be afraid anymore. "He will come back," she whispered against Nathan's chest. "He will not just let me go." "Then I will be here," Nathan said simply. "I will not let him hurt you again." Adelaide pulled back enough to look up at him, searching his face. "Why? Why are you doing this for me?" Nathan was quiet for a moment, his hands still steady on her arms, keeping her upright. "Because it is the right thing to do, because no one should live in fear, and because—" He paused, seeming to wrestle with something. "Because from the moment I saw you on that road, I felt like I was supposed to find you, like maybe you were meant to be here." Something shifted in Adelaide's chest, something that felt dangerously close to hope. She had been so broken, so certain that she would never feel anything again except fear and pain. But standing here with Nathan Vance, with his steady hands and his honest eyes, she felt the first fragile stirring of something else. "I am not who I was before," she said softly. "That night he took something from me that I cannot get back." "I know," Nathan said. "And I am not asking for anything from you. I just want you to know that you are safe here, for as long as you need to be." When Sarah returned from town and heard what had happened, she immediately sent word to the sheriff. Sheriff McLean was an older man, fair-minded and respected, and he came out to the ranch the next day to take statements. "The law is complicated in situations like this," he admitted after hearing the whole story. "Technically, you are still married to him, Mrs. Pierce. But what he did to you on your wedding night, that is assault, plain and simple. And him coming here and threatening you, breaking down the door, that is trespassing and destruction of property." "So what can we do?" Nathan asked. "I can arrest him for the trespassing and destruction." That will keep him locked up for a few days at least. And I can make it clear to him that if he comes near this property again, he will face serious consequences. But as for the marriage, the sheriff shook his head. Divorce is difficult, expensive, and not guaranteed, especially with him being able to claim you abandoned him. I did not abandon him, Adelaide said, her voice tight. I fled for my life. I believe you, madam, but convincing a judge of that is another matter. Adelaide felt despair settling over her like a shroud. She was trapped. She would always be trapped, tied to a monster by law and custom, and the rings they had exchanged in a ceremony that now felt like a mockery. But Nathan reached over and took her hand, his grip warm and solid. We will figure it out, he said. Even if it takes years, we will find a way. The sheriff arrested Thomas that afternoon, and true to his word, he made it very clear that if Thomas came near Adelaide or the Vance ranch again, he would be looking at serious jail time. Thomas left Alamosa 2 weeks later, heading east, and Adelaide felt like she could breathe for the first time in months, but the fear did not leave so easily. For weeks after Thomas was gone, Adelaide jumped at sudden movements and flinched from loud noises. She could not sleep without nightmares, and sometimes she would wake up gasping, convinced that Thomas was in the room with her. Nathan never pushed. He gave her space when she needed it and quiet companionship when she did not. He taught her to ride horses properly, spending patient hours in the corral while Adelaide learned to trust the big animals. He showed her how to rope cattle, how to mend fences, how to do all the things that made up life on a ranch. And slowly, over the long summer months, Adelaide began to heal. Not completely, because some wounds never fully close, but enough that she could look at Nathan without fear. Enough that when their hands brushed accidentally, she did not pull away. Enough that she started to notice the way his eyes crinkled when he smiled, the way his voice got softer when he talked to her, the way he always seemed to know when she needed someone and when she needed solitude. 4 months after Adelaide had arrived at the ranch, she and Nathan were sitting on the porch watching the sunset paint the Sangre de Cristo Mountains in shades of pink and gold. Sarah had gone to visit a friend in town, leaving them alone in the comfortable silence they had developed. Nathan, Adelaide said finally, can I ask you something? Anything? Why have you never married? You are a good man, you have a successful ranch, surely women have been interested. Nathan was quiet for a long moment, looking out at the mountains. I suppose I was waiting for the right person. And then I found you sitting in the road in a wedding dress, and I thought, there she is. There is the person I have been waiting for. Even if I never get to have you, even if you just need a safe place to heal and then you move on, at least I got to know you were real. Adelaide felt tears prick her eyes, but they were not tears of pain this time. I am still married to him. By law, I belong to Thomas Pierce. You do not belong to anyone but yourself, Nathan said firmly. And I would wait a lifetime if I had to. I would wait until the law changes or he dies or the world ends. I do not care. I just want you to be safe and happy, even if it is not with me. Adelaide reached over and took his hand, lacing her fingers through his. Nathan looked down at their joined hands like he could not quite believe it was real. What if I wanted to be with you? Adelaide whispered. What if I am tired of being afraid and tired of letting him control my life even from a distance? What if I want to choose for myself, just this once? Nathan turned to face her fully, his expression serious. Adelaide, I will not pretend I do not want that more than anything. But I need you to be sure. I need you to know that I will never push you, never rush you. What he did to you, that was not love. That was not what it is supposed to be between a man and a woman. And I need you to be ready, truly ready, before anything happens between us. I know, Adelaide said. And I am not ready yet. Maybe I will not be ready for months, maybe longer, but I want to try. I want to see if I can learn to be close to someone again without being afraid. Will you be patient with me? For as long as it takes, Nathan promised. Autumn came to the San Luis Valley, turning the cottonwoods gold and bringing cooler nights. Adelaide and Nathan fell into a new pattern, one that included tentative touches and soft conversations, and a growing intimacy that had nothing to do with physical closeness. Nathan courted her the way she should have been courted the first time, with wildflowers left on her pillow, and compliments about her cooking and hours spent talking about everything and nothing. He told her about growing up in Missouri, about coming to Colorado with his parents and Sarah when he was 16, about building the ranch from nothing after his father died. She told him about her childhood in Kansas, about her parents dying of cholera, about the aunt who had pushed her into marriage with Thomas because she could not afford to keep feeding another mouth. "I barely knew him," Adelaide admitted one evening as they washed dishes together. "We had 3 brief conversations before the wedding, always with my aunt present. He seemed respectable enough. I had no idea what he was really like." "That was not your fault," Nathan said. "You trusted the people who were supposed to protect you and they failed you. I know that now. But for a long time, I wondered if I had somehow brought it on myself, if I had said something or done something that made him think I deserved what he did." Nathan put down the dish he was washing and turned to face her. "Adelaide, look at me. Nothing you could have said or done would have justified what he did. Nothing. He hurt you because he is a cruel man who wanted power over someone weaker. That is all. The fault lies entirely with him." Adelaide nodded, blinking back tears. "I am glad I found you, or you found me. However it happened, so am I." Winter settled over Colorado with snow that blanketed the valley and turned the ranch into something out of a fairy tale. Adelaide had been there 6 months now, and the nightmares were becoming less frequent. She could let Nathan hug her without tensing, could lean against him on the porch without feeling the urge to run. One evening in December, they were sitting by the fire while Sarah knitted in the corner. Nathan had his arm around Adelaide, and she was tucked against his side, warm and safe and more content than she had ever thought possible. "I got a letter from the sheriff today," Nathan said quietly. "Thomas died." Adelaide sat up, her heart suddenly hammering. "What?" "He was in a gambling dispute in Denver. Someone shot him. The sheriff wanted us to know, thought it might bring you some peace." Adelaide did not know what to feel. Relief, certainly, but also a strange kind of grief, not for the man Thomas had been, but for the life she might have had if he had been different, if he had been kind, if their wedding night had been gentle instead of violent. "You are free now," Nathan said, watching her carefully. "Truly free. The marriage is dissolved by his death. You can go anywhere, do anything. You are not bound to him or to this ranch or to me." Adelaide looked at him, at his steady brown eyes and his honest face and his hands that had never once hurt her. "What if I want to be bound to you? What if I want to choose you, freely this time, with no fear and no coercion?" Nathan's breath caught. "Adelaide, I love you," she said, the words coming easier than she expected. "I do not know exactly when it happened, but somewhere between you finding me on that road and teaching me to ride horses and holding me when I had nightmares, I fell in love with you. And I want to build a life with you if you will have me. If I will have you." Nathan laughed, the sound shaky with emotion. "Adelaide, I have loved you since the moment I saw you. I would be honored to build a life with you." He kissed her then, carefully, giving her every opportunity to pull away. But Adelaide did not pull away. She leaned into him, into the kiss, into the promise of something better. It was nothing like the brutal taking of her wedding night. This was soft and sweet and patient, the kind of kiss that spoke of a future built on respect and trust and genuine love. When they finally pulled apart, Sarah was grinning from her corner. "About time," she said. "I was beginning to think you two would dance around each other forever." "Were we that obvious?" Adelaide asked, laughing. "Painfully," Sarah confirmed. "But I am happy for you both, truly." Nathan and Adelaide were married in February of 1879, in a small ceremony at the ranch with just Sarah and a few close neighbors present. This time, Adelaide wore a simple blue dress and carried wildflowers that Nathan had somehow managed to find even in the dead of winter. This time, when she said her vows, she meant every word. This time she was choosing freely. That night, Adelaide was terrified. She tried to hide it, but Nathan knew her too well by now. "We do not have to do anything," he said gently as they stood in their bedroom. "We can just sleep. I am content to wait as long as you need." "I want to try," Adelaide said, though her voice shook. "I trust you, I am afraid." "Then we go slow," Nathan said. "And if at any point you want to stop, we stop. No questions, no complaints. You are in control here, Adelaide, always." They did go slow. Painfully, carefully slow. Nathan was patient beyond measure, stopping whenever Adelaide tensed, waiting until she nodded for him to continue, checking in with her constantly. It was nothing like her first wedding night. There was no pain, no terror, just gentle touches and whispered reassurances, and Nathan's voice murmuring that she was safe, she was loved, she was precious. Afterward, Adelaide cried, but not from pain. She cried from relief, from the realization that this was what it was supposed to be like. This tender intimacy, this mutual care, this complete absence of violence. "Thank you," she whispered against Nathan's chest. "Thank you for being patient with me. Thank you for waiting." "I would have waited forever," Nathan said, holding her close. "You were worth every moment." The months that followed were the happiest of Adelaide's life. She threw herself into ranch life, working alongside Nathan and Sarah, learning everything there was to know about cattle and horses and the rhythms of the land. She discovered she had a talent for healing sick animals, and soon neighbors were bringing her injured livestock and asking for her help. Nathan taught her to shoot. Hours spent at the makeshift range he set up behind the barn, until Adelaide could hit a target with impressive accuracy. "Every woman should know how to protect herself," he said, and Adelaide silently agreed, thinking of all the times she had been helpless. Sarah eventually remarried, a quiet banker from a Lamosa named Robert Chen, whose family had come from San Francisco. The wedding was joyful, and though Adelaide was sad to see Sarah leave the ranch, she was happy for her friend. Robert was kind and clearly adored Sarah, and that was all that mattered. With Sarah gone, the ranch became truly Adelaide and Nathan's. They hired a few ranch hands to help with the work, young men who treated Adelaide with respect and Nathan with something close to hero worship. The ranch prospered, the herds grew, and Adelaide finally felt like she had found where she belonged. In the spring of 1880, Adelaide discovered she was pregnant. The news sent her into a panic at first, memories of her wedding night flooding back, the thought of being vulnerable again terrifying her. But Nathan held her through the fear, reminded her that this was different, that their child was created from love and not violence. "You are not alone in this," he promised. "I will be with you every step of the way." The pregnancy was not easy. Adelaide was sick for months, and the summer heat made everything worse. But Nathan was true to his word, staying by her side, holding her hair when she was ill, rubbing her swollen feet in the evenings, reading to her when she was too tired to do anything but rest. In November, as the first snow began to fall, Adelaide went into labor. It was long and difficult, and there were moments when Adelaide was certain she would not survive. But Nathan was there, holding her hand, coaching her through each contraction. And finally, as dawn broke over the mountains, their son was born. They named him James Nathan Vance, and he was perfect. Tiny and red-faced and screaming with impressive lungs, but perfect. Adelaide held him and cried, overwhelmed with love for this small person she had created. "He has your eyes," Nathan said, leaning over to kiss her forehead. "He is going to be handsome like his mother." "Nonsense," Adelaide said, laughing through her tears. "He is going to be strong and good like his father." "He can be both," Nathan said, and Adelaide had to agree. Motherhood was harder than Adelaide had anticipated, but also more rewarding. James was a colicky baby who rarely slept and cried often, but Adelaide did not mind. She loved him with a fierceness that surprised her, would have died to protect him without a second thought. Nathan was a natural father, patient and playful and endlessly fascinated by their son. He would spend hours just watching James sleep, or trying to make him laugh, or telling him stories about the ranch even though James was far too young to understand. As James grew from infant to toddler, the ranch grew with him. Nathan expanded their operations, buying more land and more cattle. Adelaide started a small vegetable operation, selling produce in town and making enough money to put away for James's future. They talked about having more children, but Adelaide's second pregnancy ended in a miscarriage, and after that, she was hesitant to try again. "James is enough," she told Nathan. "One healthy child is more than I ever thought I would have. I am content." "Then so am I," Nathan said, and he meant it. The years passed in a blur of work and love and watching James grow into a bright, curious boy. He had Adelaide's dark hair and Nathan's brown eyes, and a personality that was entirely his own. He was fearless in a way that sometimes terrified Adelaide, always climbing things he should not climb and exploring places he should not explore. When James was 5, Adelaide finally told him about her first husband. Not the details, he was far too young for that, but enough that he understood his mother had been hurt before she met his father, and that Nathan had saved her. "Papa is a hero," James declared with the absolute certainty of a 5-year-old, and Adelaide had to agree. "Yes," she said, pulling him close. "Your papa is a hero, and you are my whole heart." By the time James was 10 in 1890, the ranch was one of the most successful in the San Luis Valley. Nathan had earned a reputation as a fair employer and an honest dealer, and Adelaide was known throughout Alamosa for her way with animals and her kindness to those in need. They had built something good together, something that would last. One evening, as they sat on the porch watching the sunset like they had done 1,000 times before, Adelaide leaned against Nathan and sighed contentedly. "What are you thinking about?" Nathan asked, his arm around her shoulders. "I am thinking about how lucky I am," Adelaide said. "When you found me on that road 12 years ago, I was broken. I thought I would never be whole again. But you showed me that there was still good in the world. You gave me time to heal. You taught me what love was supposed to be. You gave me a family and a home and a life worth living." Nathan kissed the top of her head. "You did not need me to save you, Adelaide. You saved yourself. You were the one who was brave enough to walk away from him. You were the one who chose to heal instead of staying broken. You were the one who decided to love again. I just got lucky enough to be there when you did." "We both got lucky," Adelaide said. "I found you and you found me, and we found each other." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the mountains turn purple in the fading light. From inside the house came the sound of James practicing his reading, stumbling over words but determined to get them right. The cattle lowed softly in the distance, and a cool breeze carried the scent of sage and earth. Adelaide thought about that girl on the road in the ruined wedding dress, empty and terrified and certain her life was over. If she could go back and tell that girl what was waiting for her, the love she would find, the life she would build, the happiness that was possible even after horror, would that girl have believed her? Maybe not. But it did not matter now. That girl was gone, transformed into the woman Adelaide had become, stronger, wiser, loved beyond measure. "Thank you for waiting for me," Adelaide said softly. Nathan tightened his arm around her. "Thank you for being worth the wait." As the stars began to emerge overhead, Adelaide Vance, formerly Adelaide Parker, once a terrified bride fleeing into the Colorado morning, now the beloved wife of a good man and mother to a wonderful son, felt nothing but peace. She had survived the worst night of her life and built the best life she could imagine from the ashes. And in the end, that was everything. The years continued to unfold with a gentle rhythm that Adelaide had learned to cherish. She watched James grow into a young man who carried his father's steady nature and his mother's compassion. At 15, he was already taller than Nathan, broad-shouldered and strong from years of ranch work, but he was never rough or careless. Adelaide saw to that, teaching him by example that true strength lay in gentleness, that power was meant to protect, never to harm. Sarah and Robert visited often, their own 3 children playing with James whenever they came to the ranch. Adelaide was grateful for these visits, for the reminder that family was not always born of blood, but could be chosen and built through love and shared experience. Sarah remained one of her closest friends, the woman who had helped her through those first dark days when Adelaide was not sure she would ever feel human again. In 1895, when Adelaide was 39 and Nathan was 47, they received unexpected news. Adelaide was pregnant again, despite the years that had passed and her certainty that James would be their only child. The news filled her with a complex mixture of joy and fear. She was older now, and the memory of her miscarriage still haunted her. But Nathan was there, as he had always been, steady and sure. "Whatever happens, we will face it together," he told her, his hand resting gently on her still flat stomach. "But I have a feeling this little one is a fighter just like their mother." The pregnancy was surprisingly easy compared to her first. Adelaide felt strong and healthy, even as her belly grew round and movement became more difficult. James, now 16 and protective beyond measure, treated his mother like she was made of glass, always jumping to help her with any task. "I am not fragile," Adelaide told him with amusement. "I have been doing ranch work for 17 years. A baby is not going to stop me now." "Papa says I should watch out for you," James replied stubbornly, "and I always listen to Papa." In March of 1896, as the snow began to melt and the first signs of spring appeared, Adelaide gave birth to a daughter. The labor was shorter this time, and when the baby emerged, healthy and screaming, Adelaide felt a rush of gratitude so profound it left her breathless. They named her Rose Sarah Vance, after the wild roses that grew on the ranch and the sister who had been Adelaide's first friend in her new life. Rose had Nathan's brown hair and Adelaide's blue eyes, and from the moment she arrived, she owned everyone's hearts completely. James was besotted with his baby sister, spending hours just watching her sleep or trying to make her smile. "She is so small," he marveled. "How is something this small even real?" "You were that small once," Adelaide reminded him, "though you certainly did not stay that way for long." Nathan was equally enamored, but there was also something profound in his eyes when he looked at his daughter. Adelaide understood. Rose represented everything they had built together, proof that something beautiful could grow from the darkest beginnings. She was hope made flesh, love made tangible. As Rose grew, the ranch continued to thrive. James took on more and more responsibility, learning every aspect of the operation from his father. He had a good head for numbers and a natural way with cattle that made Nathan proud. But he also had Adelaide's healing touch, and neighbors still brought their sick animals to the Vance ranch, now as often for James's care as for Adelaide's. When James was 21 in 1900, he announced that he wanted to court a young woman named Elizabeth Morrison, the daughter of the dry goods store owner in Alamosa. Adelaide liked Elizabeth immediately. She was smart and kind and did not shy away from hard work. More importantly, she looked at James like he hung the moon, and James looked at her the same way. "I think she is the one, Ma," James confided to Adelaide one evening. "I want to ask her to marry me, but I wanted to make sure you approved." Adelaide felt tears prick her eyes. "James, you do not need my approval, though you have it, but let me tell you something. Marriage is sacred, but only if it is built on respect and love and partnership. Make sure Elizabeth knows that she is your equal, not your property. Make sure she never has reason to fear you. And if she says yes, treat her like the precious gift she is, every single day of your life." James looked at his mother with an understanding beyond his years. She had never told him the full story of her first marriage, but he was smart enough to read between the lines, to understand that something terrible had happened to her before she met Nathan. "I promise, Ma, I will be the kind of husband Papa taught me to be." "Then you will be an excellent husband," Adelaide said, pulling him into a hug. James and Elizabeth were married in June, a beautiful ceremony under the cottonwood trees on the ranch. Adelaide watched her son exchange vows with his bride and saw nothing but love and joy and promise in their faces. This was what a wedding should be, she thought. This anticipation and excitement, not dread and fear. Nathan must have sensed her thoughts because he reached over and took her hand, squeezing gently. After 21 years together, they could often communicate without words, a language built from shared experiences and deep understanding. James and Elizabeth built a small house on the far edge of the ranch property, near enough to help with the work but far enough to have their own space and privacy. Adelaide was grateful to have them close, to watch their love story unfold with all the sweetness and tenderness hers and Nathan's had held. Rose, meanwhile, was growing into a spirited 7-year-old who loved horses more than anything else in the world. She spent hours in the corral with Nathan, learning to ride before she could barely reach the stirrups, fearless in a way that reminded Adelaide of James at that age. "She is going to give us gray hairs," Nathan said one day, watching Rose gallop across the pasture with more confidence than caution. "James gave us gray hairs too," Adelaide pointed out. "I suppose it is the price of raising children who are not afraid of the world." "I would not trade it for anything," Nathan said, and Adelaide agreed. In 1902, Elizabeth gave birth to Adelaide's first grandchild, a boy they named Nathan James Morrison Vance. Adelaide held the baby and felt the circle of life completing itself, the continuation of the family she and Nathan had built from nothing. This child would grow up knowing only love and safety, would never have to wonder if the people who were supposed to protect him might hurt him instead. As she rocked her grandson, Adelaide thought about all the years that had passed since that terrible wedding night, since the morning she had fled into the Colorado wilderness with nothing but terror driving her. She thought about Nathan finding her on that dusty road, about the patience he had shown, about the months he had waited for her to heal enough to even consider letting someone close. He had saved her life. There was no question about that. But more than that, he had shown her that she was worth saving, that she was worthy of love and respect and gentleness, that what had been done to her was not her fault and did not define her. He had given her time and space and unconditional support, never asking for anything in return, never making her feel like she owed him something for his kindness. And in doing so, he had given her back herself. "What are you thinking about?" Nathan asked, sitting down beside her. "I am thinking about how grateful I am," Adelaide said, "for everything, for you finding me, for your patience, for the life we have built, for our children and now our grandchild, for every single day I have gotten to spend as your wife." Nathan reached over and tucked a strand of gray-streaked hair behind her ear. They were both older now, in their late 40s and mid-50s respectively, with lines on their faces and silver in their hair. But when Adelaide looked at Nathan, she still saw the steady, honest man who had offered her help without expecting anything in return. "I am the grateful one," Nathan said. "You gave me a purpose, Adelaide. You gave me a family and a love I never thought I would find. You were broken when I met you, but you had the courage to heal. That takes a strength most people do not have. I am in awe of you even now." Adelaide leaned over and kissed him, careful not to jostle the sleeping baby in her arms. After 23 years, kissing Nathan was still one of her favorite things in the world. It still felt safe and sweet and full of promise. Rose came bursting through the door then, full of 9-year-old energy and enthusiasm. "Mama, Papa, you have to come see." One of the mares had her foal, and it is the most beautiful thing I have ever seen. Adelaide and Nathan exchanged amused glances. Their daughter had her priorities very clear, and baby horses ranked significantly higher than baby humans on her list of exciting things. "Let me just put your nephew down," Adelaide said, carefully placing the sleeping infant in his cradle. "Then we can go admire this foal." They walked out to the barn as a family, Rose chattering excitedly about the foal's markings and how she wanted to name it Starlight because of the white blaze on its forehead. The evening sun was setting over the mountains, painting everything in shades of gold and amber. Adelaide paused for a moment, taking in the scene. Her daughter running ahead, her husband beside her, her son and daughter-in-law in their little house in the distance, her grandchild sleeping peacefully. The ranch stretched out around them, prosperous and beautiful, built from years of hard work and love. This was her life now. Not the one she had imagined as a young woman in Kansas. Certainly not the one that had been forced on her during those terrifying hours with Thomas Pierce. This was better than anything she could have dreamed, forged from pain and terror into something glorious. Nathan caught her looking and smiled, that quiet smile that was just for her. "You coming?" "I am coming," Adelaide said, taking his offered hand. "I am right where I belong." The years continued their steady march forward. Rose grew into a beautiful young woman with a rare gift for training horses. By the time she was 17, in 1913, ranchers from all over Colorado were bringing their difficult horses to her, trusting her patient methods and gentle touch. She had learned from the best, after all, watching her father work with animals for her entire life, absorbing his philosophy that kindness and consistency were far more effective than force. James and Elizabeth had 3 more children over the years, giving Adelaide and Nathan a house full of grandchildren to spoil and love. Adelaide watched these grandchildren grow up in a world so different from the one she had known as a young woman, a world where they were safe and cherished and allowed to be children. In 1915, when Adelaide was 59 and Nathan was 67, they celebrated their 36th anniversary. It was a quiet celebration, just the two of them on the porch watching the sunset like they had done countless times before. But there was something sacred about it, this marking of years that Adelaide had never expected to have. "Do you ever think about what your life might have been if I had not found you that day?" Nathan asked. Adelaide considered the question seriously. "I think about it sometimes. I probably would have kept walking until I collapsed somewhere. Maybe someone else would have helped me, or maybe not. But I do not think I would have survived long. I was not in a good state. I am glad I took that route that day, Nathan said. I almost went the other way, you know. I had a feeling, though, something telling me to go the road past Alamosa. I did not question it. Fate, Adelaide said softly. Or luck, or divine intervention. Whatever it was, I am grateful for it. They sat in comfortable silence, hands linked, watching the light fade from the sky. Adelaide's joints ached more than they used to, and she tired more easily, but she was content in a way she had never been in her youth. She had lived a full life, had loved deeply and been loved in return, had built something lasting and good. Nathan, she said suddenly, I want you to know something. That night, the wedding night with Thomas, it was the worst experience of my life. It shattered me in ways I did not think I could recover from. But I did recover because of you. You showed me that intimacy did not have to be violent, that a man could be trusted, that love was real and not just a pretty lie. You gave me back something I thought was lost forever. And I have never properly thanked you for that. Nathan turned to look at her, his eyes bright with emotion. Adelaide, you do not owe me thanks. You healed yourself. You did the hard work of learning to trust again, of opening your heart when you had every reason to keep it closed. I just tried not to screw it up. Adelaide laughed, the sound warm and rich. You definitely did not screw it up. You were perfect. You are perfect. Even now, after all these years, I still marvel at how lucky I was to find you. We found each other, Nathan corrected, and I am the lucky one. Rose came out onto the porch then, interrupting the moment but not really. At 20, she was confident and capable, running most of the horse training operation herself now while James handled the cattle side of things with his father. Mama, Papa, Elizabeth sent word that the baby is coming. We should probably head over there. Adelaide's heart leaped. Elizabeth was pregnant with their 5th child, and Adelaide had learned long ago that each new life was a miracle worth celebrating. She and Nathan hurried to James and Elizabeth's house, where they found Elizabeth in labor, calm and strong even as the contractions intensified. Adelaide stayed by her daughter-in-law's side, coaching her through the pain, remembering her own labors and how Nathan had been her anchor. Hours later, as the sun rose over the mountains, another grandchild entered the world. A girl they named Adelaide rose after the 2 women who had shaped James's life so profoundly. Holding her namesake, Adelaide felt a completeness she had not known was possible. This tiny person, born into love and safety, represented everything Adelaide had fought for, everything Nathan had given her the space and time to achieve. She is going to have a good life, Elizabeth said tiredly from the bed. We will make sure of it. I know you will, Adelaide said, tears streaming down her face. You and James are wonderful parents. These children are blessed to have you. As the family gathered around the new baby, Nathan's arm around Adelaide's shoulders, their children and grandchildren filling the room with love and laughter, Adelaide thought about the long road that had brought her here. The pain of that first wedding night would always be with her, a scar that had never fully faded. But it no longer defined her. She had survived it, had built a life beyond it, had found love and joy and purpose despite it. Nathan had waited months for her to be ready, had given her all the time she needed to heal, and in doing so, he had shown her what real love looked like. Not demanding, not taking, but patient and kind and willing to put her needs above his own desires. Thank you, she whispered to him, loud enough that only he could hear. For what? Nathan asked, though his smile suggested he knew, for waiting, for everything, for this life. Nathan kissed her temple, a gesture so familiar and comfortable it felt like coming home. I would do it all again in a heartbeat. Every moment of waiting, every challenge, every year. You were worth all of it, Adelaide. You always have been. As the morning sun filled the room with golden light, Adelaide Vance, survivor, wife, mother, grandmother, and beloved partner to the man who had saved her by giving her time to save herself, felt nothing but gratitude. Her wedding night with Thomas Pierce had been nothing but pain and terror, but her life with Nathan Vance had been nothing but love and healing and hope. And in the end, love had won. The years that followed were quiet ones, filled with the simple pleasures of a life well lived. Nathan officially retired from active ranch management in 1918, turning the operation over to James while he and Adelaide enjoyed a slower pace. They still helped where they could, still gave advice when asked, but mostly they spent their time together, making up for all the years Adelaide had lost before she found him. They traveled a bit, taking the train to Denver and San Francisco, places Adelaide had never imagined seeing. They visited Sarah and Robert, now grandparents themselves. They watched their grandchildren grow and thrive and begin families of their own. They grew old together, gracefully and without regret. In 1925, Nathan fell ill with pneumonia. At 77, his body did not have the strength to fight it off. Adelaide sat by his bedside day and night, holding his hand, remembering all the times he had sat by hers when she was broken and healing. "I am not afraid," Nathan told her one evening, his voice weak but steady. "I've lived a good life, Adelaide. I got to love you for 46 years. I got to see our children grow up happy and healthy. I got to build something that will last beyond me. I am content." "I am not ready to let you go," Adelaide said, tears streaming down her face. "I know," Nathan said gently, "but you are strong enough to do it anyway. You have always been the strong one, Adelaide. Even when you thought you were broken, you were stronger than anyone I have ever known. You will be all right." He died 3 days later, surrounded by his family, his hand in Adelaide's. And though Adelaide's heart broke at the loss, she knew he was right. She was strong enough to survive this, just as she had survived everything else life had thrown at her. She lived another 12 years, watching her great-grandchildren be born, watching the ranch continue to prosper under James's capable leadership, watching Rose revolutionize horse training methods in ways that would influence ranchers for generations. She told her story to her grandchildren and great-grandchildren, not all of it, but enough that they understood the importance of kindness and patience and respect. Adelaide Vance died in her sleep in 1937, at the age of 81, surrounded by photographs of the family she and Nathan had built together. Her last thought was of that day on the dusty road, when a cowboy with kind eyes had stopped and offered her help without expecting anything in return. He had waited months for her to be ready, had given her all the time she needed to heal, and in doing so, had given her a life beyond her wildest dreams. She was buried next to Nathan, their headstones side by side, overlooking the ranch they had built together. And if love could transcend death, then surely they were together still, watching over the legacy they had created, the family that had grown from the seeds of patience and compassion, and a love that had been worth waiting for. Their great-great-grandchildren still work the ranch today, carrying on the values Nathan and Adelaide instilled, treating every person and animal with respect and gentleness. The story of how they met, of Adelaide's escape and Nathan's patience, has become family legend, passed down through generations as a reminder that even from the darkest beginnings, something beautiful can grow. And that is the greatest legacy of all. Not the land or the cattle or the success, but the love story that proved healing is possible, that patience is powerful, and that sometimes the best thing you can do for someone is simply give them time and space to become whole again. Adelaide and Nathan Vance lived and loved and built a family that would endure for generations. All because a cowboy stopped on a dusty road one morning in 1878 and offered help to a broken woman in a ruined wedding dress. He waited months for her to be ready, and she spent a lifetime being grateful that he did.